Okay, picking up on page 455, we just finished talking about the drill down reports. Next, we're going to talk about the MIS characteristics. So let's just look at this and go through it. So, provides reports with either fixed or kind of standard formats. In other words, the quarterly statements, that kind of stuff. Produce hard copy and soft copy. Soft copy is the one we just talked about, where it's probably like either an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF form, or perhaps an on-screen form where you can drill down and drill down and drill down. Hard copy, obviously, they're kind of talking about paper, or maybe a paper equivalent like a PDF. Uses internal data stored in the computer. Yeah. Allows his users to develop custom reports, because the guys who put together an MIS couldn't possibly anticipate every single question you're going to ask. They could have an awful lot of canned reports, but if you want something kind of special, then they have a way you can go in and do an ad hoc report. And I think this is a typo here. I don't think this should read require user requests for reports developed by system personnel. I would have thought they meant allow user requests for reports developed by system. I don't know. Can't tell. Doesn't look right to me. Okay. So let's continue. So this next screen basically talks about the functional areas. Now this diagram kind of sort of looks like that there's multiple MISs. Okay? And from kind of a unique perspective, it really kind of sort of is. So for example, if you're the human resources, your schedule reports are going to look nothing like marketing. Your key indicator reports is going to look nothing like marketing. Your demand reports, exception reports. So essentially, this is tailor-made to your organization. Now, you could have a financial MIS in manufacturing. Now, to tell you the truth, more than likely, you're going to have one giant MIS system that has subparts, right? You're probably not going to have 5 separate vendors providing this capability. It's probably going to be all from the same vendor. It's just tweaked. Because I don't want to, if I'm over here in manufacturing, I don't want to see, the financials key indicator report. I don't have anything to do with that. I wouldn't know how to read it anyway. So this is a very good diagram showing you how these things are tailor-made, but don't take away that, I'm going to have 5 different MISs. No, you're not. Okay. The first example they kind of go through is the financial one, and I'll tell you, I am not going to go through all these because they're kind of repetitive, and so once you've kind of done through one, there's really no need to go through them all. Okay, so I'm just going to pick one. So here's my financial MIS, and of course, remember, this is tailored to the financial folks. So the financial operation information, provide access, blah, 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 blah. Order clerk records the sales generated and blah, 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 blah. All these transactions and all the stuff. It produces income statements and, all that good stuff. And here's what it kind of looks like. Again, this part, half of the screen is from Chapter 9, and this is Chapter 10 over here, where, the TPS and whether or not it's inside an ERP, and then all of this financial stuff happens over here. Okay, cool. Now, there's not any need for me to go through all the rest of them, so I'm going to skip over all that and end up on the other category on page 473. So skip over manufacturing, skip over marketing, skip over human resources, now we're getting there. Okay, so why I'm skipping them over? Because quite frankly, it's kind of boring. It's the same information over and over again. You got one MIS, you got them all. All right. Now, accounting MISs could have 2 different faces. You could have cost accounting, and you could have managerial accounting. Managerial accounting is slightly different. Managerial accounting is all about, the stuff you would appear like on a dashboard of a CEO. They're probably not going to be interested in, accounts payable, accounts receivable. That's not what they're after. They're after profit and loss statement, quarterly statements for the stockholders. They're after managerial decisions like, I have a budget of this much, and I'm halfway through the month, and I've burned 3/4 of my budget. Oh my God, I'm in trouble. Okay, that's managerial accounting. It's not the cost accounting stuff. So that's a typical use of MIS. Another one they talk about is geographic information system, GISs. I was associated with an organization that put together one of the first ones of these. It was actually kind of cool. And the idea is an awful lot of your data is spatial. Not special, spatial. Okay, so once again, the stupid example of McDonald's. So here I have pretend this is a map of these green dots are schools. Okay, it's not, but just bear with me. So green dots are schools, and here's all of the population centers. So I want to build a McDonald's, so I use geographic information to tell me where a good place to be. Now, there are other kind of usage, and I'll give you the one that I used a lot when I was first doing GIS stuff, and that is, let's say it's time for your community to build a landfill. Okay, so let's just talk about what kind of conditions have to exist for landfill. Well, first of all, you don't want it, inside the city limits or near. So it has to be like at least, I don't know, let's make this up, 5 miles away from a major urban area. It has to be relatively low level ground, so low slopes. I prefer it kind of to be like at the top of a hill, not rather than the bottom of the hill. Depth of bedrock's got to be at least like 10 feet, otherwise I can't dig a hole. It has to have high clay content. It has to be this far from a runway, airport. There's lots and lots of things. So you just put all that stuff into a GIS and say, okay, Mr. GIS, find me the best spot that meets all these criteria. So you just build up a criteria, and it'll do like a red, amber, green kind of a thing. You just pop up all the things, and it looks like over here in Kumquat County is a good location for where we ought to build our next landfill. Okay, that's what a GIS system does. Okay, cool. The next thing we're going to talk about is decision support systems. So we talked about MISs, and you might say, well, wait a minute, I thought an MIS was a decision support system. Yeah, yes it is. So is there an extra thing called a decision support system? Well, it kind of sort of depends. You could have an ERP vendor who has a separate definable TRP section, MIS section, and decision support system. It could be these are all 3 distinct products that he's trying to sell you. Okay. Others, the lines are kind of blurred, but I'll explain the difference here in just a second. All right. So decision support systems are typically higher than MISs, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Okay. Most of the things that happen in a decision support system are kind of unstructured. Now let me explain why. If it was a structure, remember what structured is? Structured means I've got everything I need, okay? If it was a structured problem, then, something as simple as an MIS or even like an Excel spreadsheet could solve the problem and you'd be done. You don't need any high-powered, computer power to make that decision. So typically, decision support systems are things that you are not structured, that semi-structured and unstructured where, look, I don't have all the data that I need. And in some cases, I don't have hardly any of the data I need, but I still need to make a decision. And I can't wait. I got to make a decision by guessing. Okay. So here's some cool characteristics they talk about. So one is they provide, rapid access to information. They handle huge amounts of data, and you'll be able to produce these things kind of rapidly. I can't wait is the whole point. Provides report and presentation flexibility. I need to be able to have it output what I want when I want it. Offers textual and graphical kind of views. Don't just give me numbers, show me on the screen, with a chart or maybe even a GIS system. Drill down analysis, because a lot of this stuff is just too complex to see all at once. I can't see every person's sales. I can't do that. It's just too many. I got 10,000 franchises all over the world, and I can't look at every single customer, every single employee's, sales success. So I have to be able to start at a region and drill down to another region, into a store, and Okay. Perform complex, sophisticated analysis and comparison. Yeah, that's what this is all about. Supports optimizing, satisficing, and heuristics, just like we did before. Okay, cool. So, this is a stupid example because it's a simple one. It's like the solver again in Microsoft Excel. I wouldn't necessarily use this as an example of a DSS just because it's kind of simple. But let's continue. Perform simulation or what-if drills. So in other words, I don't really know how many cars I'm going to sell. So I say, what if I sell 20,000 cars next month? And then you go, ooh, okay, what happens if I sell, 25,000? You go, oh, okay. So it kind of helps you pick what the target is by doing this kind of what-if drill. And then, of course, forecasting future opportunities or future problems. All right, so there's a takeaway behind all this, and so pay attention because this is the kind of stuff that shows up on quizzes. The MIS is typically about information that is past and current. Okay, you would go to the MIS and say, how much overtime did I use last week? Okay, it would be a perfect place to do a query or a report on overtime. A DSS is all about, let me schedule how much overtime I'm going to need in the future. So, one more time. The MIS is mostly about current and past information. And a DSS is mostly about future decisions. Kind of makes sense? Okay, so MIS has practically no forecasting. All it is, here's how much overtime you got. Yeah, here's, that's how much you got in January, and here's how much you got in February. But it's not going to tell you, well, so therefore, in March, you need this amount. Typically, MISs don't do that. But decision support systems do. They're all about the future. Okay. You got that, right? Okay, cool. So let's talk about the capabilities. So the first one basically talks about, it has to support all the problem-solving phases. Remember the problem-solving phases where, I have to identify the problem, I have to design, come up with some alternatives, and I have to pick one. Remember all that? Okay. So most of the time it can help because, once again, if you're off on a wild tangent because you think you know what the problem is, this could cause you. So the DSS can assist you in saying, look, the height of the shelves has got nothing to do with the problem, okay? Step away from the computer and let me give you some suggestions, okay? So that's good. It supports all these problem-solving phases. Support for different decision frequencies. In other words, in MIS, you might ask it lots of things. Like, how much overtime are we spending down there in the manufacturing sector? You might run that 2 or 3 times a week. But most likely in the decision, these are kind of one of a time. They could be, repetitive kind of things. But there's lots of these things that just happen ad hoc. Like I could just come up and say, look, I think I need to add additional staff onto the manufacturing because that overtime is killing me. Now, how many times do you do that? Trust me, if you do it once a week, there's definitely something wrong with your company. Okay. So that's what this is all about. Support for making decisions at different levels. This is kind of a view of the information pyramid, kind of, sort of. It talks about, operational control, tactical control, strategic. Oh, those are good Army terms, aren't they? And what is the frequency? So most likely, strategic managers, involved with making long-term decisions probably don't do that very often, right? In other words, how many times do you pick where a new McDonald's is? Hopefully it's not done once a day or once a week or maybe once a month. But maybe once a quarter you do that. In other words, it is a high-level decision, but geez, you don't do it every day. But on the other hand, how many skilled laborers should show up for the production line retooling next week? Well, yeah, you're going to be doing that an awful lot. So it's all about the frequency of decisions. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll continue in just a minute.